Welcome back, and today is another episode of Ask Tim and Julie Anything, tough, honest answers to your questions. And we've got 5 questions that Julie and I pulled out of our emails. And a lot of these questions this week, actually, Julie, as you know, came from our actual coaching students in Premier Coaching. So Premier Coaching clients, if you have any questions, just, you can just text me directly. That's the easy button at 512-758-0206, or just post them during the daily regular coaching session. The coaches will send us the questions, and that is where we got all these questions for today's show. But I have a quick announcement.
Sure.
It is official. We are going to be doing a European tour that is going to encompass part of France, Italy, and Switzerland this summer for June and July.
And don't forget Monaco.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget Monaco, indeed. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. That's true. It's another country, albeit small.
Yes.
So we are going to be in Europe this summer. We did a U.S. tour in 2021. So we have been picking up more and more podcast listeners over in Europe. So that's where we're going to be going. We will be posting our schedule every day through Instagram while we're there, just letting all of our European listeners know, at least those that are near those countries, that, we would love to meet with you as we're walking up the Eiffel Tower, walk with us and things of that nature. You know, it's fascinating. Our minds are all geared towards countries being super far away from each other.
Yes.
But over there, it's like, 3-hour drive. Now you're in the middle of Germany and, 3 hours.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, there it is. If you are listening to us in Europe, we are coming your way in June and July. All right. So Julie, this episode of Ask Tim and Julie Anything was a little bit all over the place as far as the questions go. So let's just jump right in. And the first question is, I do get this quite regularly. Sometimes I even post the answer to this question on Instagram, is what podcasts do you listen to regularly?
Yes, and we'll go through some of these. Maybe we'll talk about, why we like a couple of these, and then we'll move on to the next question. So you and I both listen to the All In podcast. And how would you describe that? Because they talk about so many different things every week.
Well, the reality of it is it's 4 billionaires talking about where they see business opportunities, but they do give a lot of insight as to things that are way around the bend that a mere mortal like all of us would never have exposure to. That's the reason we listen to it. A lot on AI lately. They do have, it seems, when they're in their wheelhouse, their opinions are really good. They had some, I think, ill-informed opinions with regards to the, commission sharing lawsuit and thing like that. But for the most part, it is, I think, it's definitely one of the top 50 podcasts in the world. I think maybe it's something all of you will benefit from if you even have a tiny bit of entrepreneurial angst. So the next one is How I Built This. And Julie, what's that one about?
That's where the host takes either a product or a company. Let's say it's, I don't know, he did one on Duolingo, right? So how did Duolingo happen? Who founded it? How does it work? How is it profitable? It's taking a business model and putting it together and taking it apart. I find it very interesting.
What we intentionally do is we listen to business podcasts that aren't overly businessy, and we also like to lean into biographies or anything basically is telling a story about how somebody else built a business. Because if nothing else, you can get inspiration because you realize you're not the only weirdo out there trying to be,
For sure.
do something unconventional. All right, Julie, the next one is one you listen to. I actually haven't started listening to this one. It's called Dennis and Julie. What is that one about?
Yes, and that stands for Dennis Prager and Julie Hartman. This is quite interesting on many different levels. They talk about current events. They talk about what's happening, what they're thinking about it, but also on a different level. Dennis is probably in his 70s. Julie is, not me, Julie, this is Julie Hartman. She is 22, I think, freshly graduated from college, and it's interesting to hear how they interact with such an age difference. He's Jewish, she's Christian. They have different takes on things, but, it's a great discussion. They do it on the fly. They never talk about what they're going to say to each other before they start, so it just grows organically.
Well, so the reason you listen to that one, I think, because you tell me about it, is that it is a source for you to, they're talking about whatever is in the, I think, the zeitgeist with regards to a lot of the cultural issues that are going on.
Current events stuff.
Current events without having to listen to Fox or CNN or anything.
Yes.
That's what you're doing. You're running and you and I were talking about this when we were making this list of podcasts, that what we do is we look for people we trust that will filter the information that's out there so that we can get an informed decision, because we realize that a lot of times when you're listening to the media, it doesn't matter where it's from. A lot of it's just complete, garbage. So by listening to Dennis and Julie, I think that's what you're doing. You're filtering the, a lot of the pop culture stuff, but more specifically, some of the things that are feeling a little bit like cultural dividing issues that are being filtered through those two. All right, My First Million, I'll do that one. That one is basically despite the title, it's another really great podcast for entrepreneurs. So if you are, again, as all of you are, small business owners, there is a ton to be inspired by listening to with My First Million. Again, they lean into the tech end of the world. These guys both made their money in the tech industry. Well, one of them actually made it in selling a newsletter, which was kind of interesting. But the newsletter was about crypto, so it's all kind of the same thing. Do listen to My First Million. It's another great podcast. The next one we listen to is Expedition Unknown. Now, that one is Julie exclusive, so tell me about that one.
Yes, I think of some of these, some of my personal ones is Mind Candy, which is just a tiny little break to the day. Expedition Unknown is unsolved stories and urban legends. For example, what I'm listening to today on that is all about the lost colony of Roanoke. And, you know, what the different, they literally have only a few coins that they've discovered from the very first colony, which is an island off of North Carolina, Roanoke, right? And so what happened to them? What is the speculation? What is the evidence? Did they go inland and starve, or were they taken over by Indians? What happened?
This? What?
1585.
Wow. So that was way early.
Way early.
So this
was the first 118 settlers from England.
From England. Wow, that's incredible. My people came here in, 1635?
Yeah, this is before the Mayflower.
Yeah. So
what happened there? Right? So moving on to Away with Words. I listen to Away with Words. It's a new podcast that I'm listening to, which focuses on, you know, just how you're using words. It's writing, it's pronunciation, it's making sure that when you have a grammarly correction that it's correct. So for those of you who write a lot, that's a good one. You know, just 20 minutes a day on that.
Now remember, the list of all the podcasts we listen to, as well as all of our show notes, are available to you over at Harris Real Estate Daily. I know this is an unconventional podcast, but we like to leave Fridays a little bit, I think, less formal, to give ourselves a break and to give you guys an opportunity maybe for us to drill down on some of the things that are floating around your minds. But all these podcasts, and we have a few more, definitely inspire us. And we use these podcasts, Julie and I will talk about them. So if we're listening, a lot of the podcasts we listen to the same ones, and then we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about that on our walks. We talk about that over dinner, and we'll just share notes and kind of compare. Then you guys can see there's an indirect benefit from the relationship perspective when you have a shared experience. A lot of times I've noticed, Julie, and this is kind of off topic, but when we have couples that we coach, married folks, they will have a tendency sometimes to have issues with regards to the fact that they're all they're living distinct lives. And there's nothing other than the fact that they share a household and maybe children that bring them back together. I think that's really a common problem, honestly.
I think so too.
Especially if both of them are working.
Maybe they're not sharing a common North Star.
Exactly. And that's what podcasts have a tendency to do. When Julie and I first got married, we used to listen. We got married when we were young, 20 and 21, but we used to listen to Dr. Laura Schlesinger every day. And she became basically our mother, grandmother, marital counselor, everything you could possibly imagine, all wrapped up in one. But we listened to that every day, and that definitely kept us, on the North Star direction. And also, Bruce Williams was someone I used to listen to.
Read my mind.
Yep, I used to listen to him every single day for business advice, and I think he was a syndicated AM radio show host. Why am I sharing all this with you? Because we are constantly surrounded, especially nowadays, with folks that are more than willing to give you their great ideas and inspirations and share things with you that are going to cause you to frankly be motivated. And all these podcasts in one form or another cause us to be motivated by being intellectually stimulated. And notice, Julie and I do not listen to any news. We do not listen to anything that's going to be in any way adverse to our mindsets. Even though we feel like we have strong, powerful mindsets, none of us have that strong, powerful mindsets when it comes to some of the salacious stuff, by the organized news media who's designed to essentially be, propagandizing all the salacious headlines. We're immune to some of that, as are all of you. So none of our podcasts in particular are anything to do with essentially what maybe everyone else thinks is important based on what CNN says is important this morning. Yeah. And I'll share this with you too, Julie. There's an actual podcasts are one of the last safe places, if you want to call it that, to go to listen to unfiltered information.
Yes, and you can curate them. I kind of think of that as my own collection of masterminds.
Right, me too.
Yeah.
Well, so the interesting thing also about podcasts is that there is no major, you can't cheat on a podcast. When I say,
what do you mean by that?
Well, so you can, and maybe the word cheat is too strong, but you cannot, on YouTube, if you wanted to, you could buy subscribers. You can, just go to Google and put in buy YouTube subscribers, or you can just do that with Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So you can easily create the appearance of having a very popular social media channel. And that's what most influencers do. Most influencers are buying the appearance of their influence, hoping that the actual influence will follow. And oddly enough, the generation of folks out there right now, they do widely judge you based on how many people you have following you on Instagram or whatever. That somehow has become the litmus test as to whether or not you're, I think a trustworthy person. Well, that's a good and a bad thing. You guys will decide, if that's something you should be counting on. But I'll share with you something really interesting is with regards to podcasts. You can't cheat podcasts. So when iTunes comes out with their podcast rankings, wherever your podcast is based on actual downloads, and you cannot buy downloads. You can't cheat podcasts. It's very fascinating that very few YouTube real estate coach and trainers have popular podcasts. Well, I wonder why that is. It's because perhaps their YouTube influence is actually bought. It's not real. And that doesn't transfer to, a podcast. And this is also another fascinating thing. If you ever listen to the news, just like go to CNN, I wouldn't suggest you be there long, or Fox or whatever, and go to the news and just listen. Close your eyes and listen. You will be amazed how little they're actually saying. It's essentially just a bunch of garbage words.
It's also very repetitive.
Yeah, exactly. They're not really disseminating anything of value. Now, do the same thing on a podcast. One that's a really great podcast. A podcast is easily 5x the amount of work of doing a video, because every single thing you say, you have to really think it through. And it has to deliver value. At least that's Julie and I's stance. And that's, and how's the marketplace rewarded us? Well, this is one of the top listened to podcasts in the world, of 5 million podcasts. In the business section of careers, this is typically one of the top 30 podcasts. And why is that? Because you guys get something listening out of our podcasts every day. So that's the reason that a lot of the major media outlets hate podcasts, is because the cream rises to the top. The marketplace decides who the experts are, and essentially the news media can't choose who the experts are anymore. And that's the reason that you have people like Joe Rogan, which is another podcast we both listen to. I don't listen to all Joe's podcasts, to be honest. I mean, the comedian podcasts that he does aren't that interesting to me.
It has a huge variety. It has wrestlers, comedians, and then intellectual type scientists. I like the variety. I don't listen to all of them either. Some of them are, I call him his dude podcast. Yeah. He talks about hunting elk and stuff. But why do you like Joe Rogan?
There was a funny survey that came out recently, or is asking women in their 20s, if you find a guy you're interested in dating, if you find out if he's a Joe Rogan fan, is that a red flag? And 99% of them said yes. Probably. But that's really ill for him, because he's not overly liberal or overly conservative. But why do I listen to him? Because I really love his interviews with these Graham Hancock and all these other folks that are, I think, the purveyors of unconventional truth that would have been called, that a lot of people are very skeptical of. Conspiracy theory types are always interesting, especially in this era that we're in now, because a lot of the things they were calling conspiracy theories just 3 to 5 years ago have now proven to be true. Remember the whole COVID thing, all these types of things? Julie and I love to listen to countervailing information to check ourselves. And we do that on a personal level as well. So if we find ourselves being resolute in a particular position about something, this is a way to keep yourself, frankly, your brain a little bit more elastic. We'll go and check ourselves. We'll go and straw man and steel man our own arguments to find out if there's any reason why we might be wrong. We'll do that before we do a podcast. We'll debate a point that we're going to present to you guys, just to make sure we're not being overly biased. We've been doing this for a long period of time, so we have our opinions. We want to always be running our opinions through filters to make it so that we're giving you guys best of breed information. And sometimes we have to bend our long-held opinions, but let's be honest, very rarely.
Yes,
All right,
but at least we check ourselves.
The next podcast we listen to, so Joe Rogan is the last one. The next one we listen to is Housing Wire Daily. By the next question we have, you guys will love too. So this is just still question 1, so stay tuned for question 2. All right, so Julie, the next one is Housing Wire Daily. We listen to that literally daily.
Yes, it's definitely bent towards the mortgage side of things, which we all should be tuned into, what's happening in the mortgage world. But I in particular listen to the Monday and Thursday shows with Logan Mohtashami, because he gives us a lot of stats and facts on a weekly basis. He also does the housing tracker for Housing Wire on their website. So he follows things like, is inventory up or down? Where is all the inventory coming in? Like there's tons of inventory in Florida and Texas. Is it happening in your neighborhood? So that's keeping up literally on a daily or weekly basis housing news.
All right, industry relations with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson. I have to give these guys credit, well, Rob in particular. He had nailed you and I remember very clearly when we were doing our U.S. tour and we were driving around out west of the United States and we were listening to these guys trumpet on about the commission sharing lawsuits, though they were called something else at that time. This was in 2021.
Yeah.
And Rob, though overly dramatic and has a tendency to overly, I think, I would say, dramatize his points. He was right with what he was expecting to have happen. Not, I think, 100% right, but at least knowing that the commission sharing lawsuits, again, they weren't called that at the time, were something that people should be talking about and that they weren't. So we listened to Rob and Greg, and not all of their shows, but most of their shows are very interesting. It's real drilled down nerdy stuff.
They're discussing things and they're looking at the issues and doing a little straw man, steel man with each other.
Mostly Rob and Greg trying to argue, but Rob for the most part
prevailing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Huberman podcast. That's about health. That's about longevity. That's about nutrition and wellness and all those types of things. We listen to Huberman. There's a couple others too. Julie, what's the one we listen to? The Daily Wire. We listen to that every morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, again, just a little snippet of current events. I think that whole thing only lasts like 7 to 14 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, and we usually listen to, now this one is a little bit partisan, but we usually do listen to Ben Shapiro every day too.
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. All right, now podcast for kids. This is something that Julie in particular has really started doing because a lot of the podcasts that are being produced for children are absolutely brilliant.
Yes, and there's tons of them, so do your own search. But my favorite ones are one called Super Great Kids Stories. That is, just taking a book, they're reading it, there's music in it, it's very lively, and then you can just scan through the topics and choose. I like these on the drive to school and the drive home. Another one, which is absolutely hilarious, is called Melon's House Party, Melon. That's the name of a dog, Melon, and all of the smart appliances in the house that talk to each other and have adventures. It is very funny, though.
Well, so Julie drives Zoe to school every morning at the crack of dawn, and they listen to Melon's House Party. And Zoe's always grouchy, And by the time it turns her around, and Julie tells me about the stories from that day's Melon's House Party. It is really funny.
It's very well done.
Exactly.
It's kind of like an old-fashioned radio play for kids. And then there's lots of Christian podcasts for kids. PragerU does a very good job with little snippets and themes of things that are digestible by kids. So do your own searches, but those are my top 3.
Well, aside from that, you've been digesting, I mentioned this on the show the other day, you've been podcasts and books about Christianity.
Yes.
And it does seem, again, it might just be our bias, but it does seem like the pendulum is definitely swinging back, as it has many times in history, back towards a more conservative, albeit maybe more, I think, religiously foundationed country.
Yes.
I'm not saying, I'm tripping over my words, but there it is.
Look at where the founding fathers came from. This stuff has been around a long time because it works. Our laws are based on, Judeo-Christian values. And so I'm just kind of deep diving in that, making sure I understand different things that have happened in history and the take on that. And a lot of that I do listen to with Zoe, just so she kind of gets it in her head with a strong understanding.
All right. So the second question we got is, what do you do on days where you just don't feel like doing what you don't want to do and you don't want to do it at the highest level? And let's be honest.
Or at any level.
Right. But let's be honest. A lot of what all of us do on a daily basis are things that if you had a day off, you would not be doing. So the reality of it is every day, Julie and I, and you, by the way, dear listener, are having to force yourself into doing things that you don't want to do and you don't want to do at the highest level. And it, just being honest, it doesn't get easier. It always sucks to do what you don't want to do and you don't want to do at the highest level. But the accumulation effect over time is far beyond what you can possibly imagine. So, Julie, you wrote most of these points down. I edited some of them.
That's okay. So again, the question is, what do you do? What do we do on days when you just don't feel like doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it? Okay, so my prevailing thought here is do it anyway. Don't give yourself an option. That's where the trouble begins. Well, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it this afternoon. It's Zoe's favorite. I'll do it later. Next is, again, starting in the morning, never hit the snooze button on work days. That's where you start hitting the snooze button throughout the workday. Exercise to break your mental cycle of procrastination. It's hard to be lazy when you have a higher heart rate, for example.
I will say the exercise thing is the greatest mindset hack ever created.
For sure, especially when you do it earlier in the day.
Right. And so if you're 100%, even if it's only like a 15-minute walk, the exercise thing has so many benefits beyond just basically, your body getting worked out. It's mental, and the mental benefits will last throughout your day, and they accumulate. So if you work out every day, maybe it's just a 15-minute walk or whatever, after a week, you're going to feel the difference. After 2 weeks, you're going to feel the difference. And what happens is you actually start feeling different. Now, why do you feel different? Because your body physiologically is operating at a higher level, but also because you're looking back and realizing that you did what you didn't want to do and you didn't want to do it at the highest level. Mm-hmm. And then you can add to it. So if you're starting from ground zero with your workout routine, my 84-year-old mother lives with us. And she works out every single day, and she holds herself accountable to it. She'll go out on a walk, maybe 2 walks a day, and that's something that she has just worked into her. She doesn't feel like doing it most days, I'm sure, but she does it anyway because it's part of her daily routine. That's maybe where I originally learned, the whole the ethos of doing what you don't want to do and you don't want to do it at the highest level. But the moral of the story is definitely work out every single day. And that's really, really critical. And then as you essentially start getting addicted to it in a strange way, then you're going to want to probably increase. And, Julie and I have been on, we've worked out consistently for a long decades.
Years,
yeah. And we've increased to the point now we're doing kettlebells and things like that. And we talk about that a lot on our Instagram channel if you want to check us out. And Julie, next point?
Next point is supplements. And obviously that's vitamins and all of the usual things. But I really believe in having your blood tested and having your hormone levels tested. For example, I found out something I never would have thought in a million years. I have a vitamin D deficiency. We live in the Caribbean. It's sunshine every day. So how is that possible? Well, my doctor said probably need to back off on the sunscreen and take a vitamin D supplement. So I think that's something that everybody should do, and then get things in balance.
Let me share something with you. I think it was actually Andrew Huberman or maybe somebody else that's in the process of studying the whole sunscreen industry. And what they're discovering, he only talked about this a little bit, was that people are using too much sunscreen. And there's 3 types of skin cancer. Like I said, there's just a preview, so I don't have any real facts.
Yep.
It's believed that only one form of skin cancer has anything to do with the sun, and the other 2 don't. So anyway, he's going to the moral of what he's going to produce as far as his podcast, the moral of the story, is that he thinks, at least this is what I think he's going to say, is that a lot of the stuff that's in skin cancer actually is causing people to get sick.
Interesting. You mean not in skin cancer, you mean in sunscreen.
Yeah, sunscreen, right. The sunscreen stuff is basically being absorbed by your body, and a lot of the things that are because people take it every single day and it goes through your skin. The chemicals and the accumulation effect of those chemicals is causing a lot of downstream or downrange health problems.
Interesting stuff. Okay, next is simple. Make your bed every day. That is a simple form of effort equals results. You walk away, and then when you come back at night, it's ready for you and doesn't look like a disaster.
Now, I'll tell you guys a little way that Julie and I gamify that. Whoever gets out of bed last has to make the bed.
Which causes you to get out of bed faster.
Right.
All right. Next is write down 5 things you are most appreciative for. Get into a state of gratitude. And related to that, showing overt appreciation to at least 5 people. We do that to each other. I, have a conversation with your mom in the morning, give Zoe her hugs, you your hugs, really be present with your family.
Well, the appreciative aspect of things, those 2 points that I wrote down, what they do is they will, let's go back to the word gamification. They gamify your mindset. So even if you're in a shitty mindset, you had a bad night's sleep, whatever, you will then find yourself miraculously changing your mindset when you're showing appreciation. Being appreciative of things causes you to be present, and being present causes you not to feel at least momentarily, not to feel the stress and the angst of whatever might be getting at you. A lot of times the way you're feeling is physiological. You're hungry, you didn't sleep well. You're not really knowing why you feel like it's going to be a bad day. Well, when you show appreciation, when you just, literally, you can show appreciation for 5 things instantly that are all around you right now. Maybe you're going on a walk while you're listening to us. Maybe you're exercising. Maybe you're, driving in your car. It doesn't really matter. The moral of the story is find 5 things that are around you right now that you're appreciative for. Start with the fact that you're alive. Hey, that's a good one, right? And then work backwards. And then the next thing is, and this one's harder for people to do, but show overt appreciation for at least 5 people. That's, again, a really great mindset hack. And by the way, it's a great way for people to like you more, is tell them, a simple compliment will do. Or mention to them that, you appreciated something that they said at a party that, you went to with them 2 weeks ago or something. Things like that. Or maybe it's just simply showing appreciation for, you saw them post something on one of the socials that you want to show appreciation for. The key to making it really work is doing it voice to voice or person to person. Don't do it digitally. But if you want to kind of hit the lazy button, do it digitally, but at least get the work done. Next one, Julie, is know your 3 to 5 daily minimum standards. So we can talk forever about that.
We've done podcasts on that.
We have, but the gist of it is all of our days, essentially your days, really are measurable by whether or not you are able to successfully do 3 to 5 things. And the accumulation effect of those 3 to 5 things will change your life. So for example, we just gave you a couple. Every single day you guys should be showing overt appreciation for all the people in your life that matter to you the most. And you should be, hugs and kisses and things like that. You should be, these are suggestions, right? And like Julie said, we've done a lot of podcasts on this. You should be overtly showing appreciation for at least 5 people a day in the form of, like I said, face-to-face, belly-to-belly, voice-to-voice, or at least writing cards to them saying you show appreciation. You should be taking your supplements every day. You should be exercising every day. You guys get it? Go back and listen to our past podcasts. If you're a Premier Coaching student, we've given you lists of things you can choose from. But the moral of the story is, and again, I'm leaning back into the moral of the story because what we're trying to help you understand is that many of the things that trouble us are because we've allowed them to be overly complicated. And the older I've gotten, frankly, and the more I've read and the more I've learned, the more I've realized that overcomplicating anything is the ego's way of procrastinating. So if you're finding yourself creating these really ridiculous, schedules and plans and lead funnels and all the rest of it, all you're really doing is procrastinating, doing the real work of real estate, which is having real conversations with folks. So always drill down and find out what those 3 to 5 things are that you should be doing every day that gets you the most results every day.
Well, it's funny that this point came up on today because I had several conversations with my elite coaching clients about this concept of daily minimum standards with regards to their business life. I think there's 2 sides to this. Your personal life, like showing gratitude and things like that, and then there's your business life. And usually this comes out on a coaching call when an agent is feeling really overwhelmed or burned out or something like that. Several of my clients are in a great level of momentum. They have lots of things going on, but that can cause you to feel really scattered and out of control. So we do a waterfall approach in coaching on this, that what are the most important, let's say, 3 things in your business day. Number 1, taking care of your existing pendings because they're counting on you to make it to the finish line. Number 2, relentless, furiously fast lead follow-up because that's your future business. And then number 3, continuously curating your long-term future business. That's like making your contacts, scheduling your open houses, all those things. And when you're doing just those 3 things, you're going to keep the train on the tracks, and other things can be temporarily backburnered. It's okay to leave some plates still spinning in the air.
And you can combine a lot of these things. So if you're showing overt appreciation for 5 people every day, you can always, tag on whatever the conversation was. Hey, by the way, before I let you know, who do you know who's thinking about buying or selling real estate that I should be helping this market? You can combine things with regards to, your daily work efforts. For example, we will suggest that you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to, this is kind of advanced and some of you won't like it. You'll recoil a bit, but it's still a great mindset. If you are putting yourself in a position to hear the word no at least 5 times a day, that was a fantastic day. In other words, no from a decision-making adult about buying or selling real estate. That means you actually stepped up to the plate. And even if you didn't get it, even if the ball didn't hit the bat, it does not matter. You at least made the effort. Why does it matter? Because at the end of the day, what really burns all of us out emotionally, and unfortunately, there's adverse effects on this financially, is that if you don't know really what the hell you're doing every day and you can't really stop to say, I had a good day or I did a good day's work, right? You're only celebrating when you have a closing or celebrating when you take a listing or celebrating, those types of things. I'm here to tell you that the real tiny little celebration should be happening every single day when you do what you don't want to do, when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And even if that's just 3 to 5 things that you're doing at a very high level, the accumulation effect, the momentum that you're building, albeit slowly, is profound. And, if you're saving, like we're going to set up Zoe gets paid for doing chores. So we're going to show, though she's not showing any interest in this yet, we're going to show her the accumulation effect of investing her money. Again, she's 10, so wish me luck on that mission. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so we're going to show her that if you put in, $10 and you do that every single week, and you show it, and this is how much it's going to be worth then. This is going to be how much, when you're this age. Again, she's 10, so I'm only hopefully planting the seeds that will get her to understand the benefits of building long-term momentum. But hopefully all you are resonating with that message as well. All right, Julie, we've got a lot of other sub-points written down on this. We can probably summarize.
Yes, where would you like to go next?
Well, I really like this one. The affirmation that you personally use.
Oh, so use affirmations like, I'm a doer, I do things now, I get things done. Now, just saying that once might not get you there. I've usually probably 5 times in a row, especially on Mondays. I'm a doer, I do things now, I get things done. You can't really procrastinate when you've said that several times to yourself. You will go immediately to getting things done. So memorize it, post it, write it on your mirror, make it as a pop-up, whatever you have to do. It does work.
So we have probably another 20 points that we wrote down under here. You can get all of our notes from harrisrealestatedaily.com. It doesn't cost you anything. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com and subscribe, or just scroll down below and click the link below, and you can get all of our notes. But we have a lot of things. You and I worked probably too long on this. You should be visiting your money every day. Julie and I use monarch.com. By the way, monarch.com and none of the podcasts we mentioned are sponsoring this podcast. This is our honest, unfiltered information.
True.
Yeah. So monarch.com is a really great app that we use to monitor all of our accounts. We found things on our Monarch account that were recurring, that were old charges from like 5 or 6 years ago, and they would change the amount every 90 days. So one month it was $9.99, and another month it was like $7.69 or something.
These are things we had definitely, unquestionably canceled.
Right. And so we went back and we found, I bet you, at least $300 a month worth of recurring garbage charges that were just basically scam charges. I was shocked, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so we didn't really explain what Monarch is. You guys can look it up, but it ties all of your different accounts and assets and investments together into one dashboard. So you can log in and you can, click around and see, how is your money doing? How are your investments doing? What's going on with your rental property values? And then because it ties to your credit cards, that's how we discovered that there were these weird recurring charges that we were convinced we had actually canceled.
But the way they set these things up is so that your brain is going to see this strange amount. Like if you see $9.99, well, that's going to maybe be something I'm going to take a look at that. But if it's some sort of strange amount, you're just assuming, well, that just must have been a legitimate charge that went through when I was at the Starbucks or whatever. Again, you got to pay attention to all this, and Monarch does a great job. And it actually goes in and flags all the expenses that it knows might be weird based on all the other customers, and they know,
patterns and things.
Exactly. So you're getting the benefit of all their customers and their really cool AI.
Yeah. It also creates budgets. Once you've had it for a few months, it'll say, you normally spend X on groceries. You are $200 over your grocery bill. Are you sure you did that? Or something like that. So it helps you keep track without having to do a forensic search on all of your different accounts.
All right. So question 3, I've been in real estate for 12 years. I've had huge ups and downs. I got this question probably 3 or 4 different variations. Yep. I actually had a call like this yesterday. I'm feeling burned out, help. And I'm going to start out by saying this. One of the best ways to know whether you'll be successful in the future is if you've been successful in the past. And when Julie and I get a no coaching client, and this is somebody that's probably joining Premier Coaching, and maybe they're a new agent and they're just doubting themselves. They're getting pulled in a million different directions. They have brokers, office managers, air quoting YouTube coaches telling them to do a bunch of different things. So they don't know what the hell they're supposed to do. The question we always ask them is, what have you been really successful at the past? They're doubting their ability to be successful in real estate. What have you been successful at? And sometimes it's easy. Well, I used to be an astronaut. Okay. I used to be an Olympic skier. I used to be something, I had another business that I sold. All right. Well, that person's going to probably be easy to direct because they know the work it takes to be really successful at a high level. So that person, frankly, is very coachable. Then you're going to have somebody who's really never been successful at anything in their whole life. And you're going to have to go back to the elementary school, 3rd grade spelling bee that they won,
Yes, that's true. Or maybe they don't even have that to rely on. You've got to help them create early, tiny wins and then build on that to show them that they can be successful. And it doesn't have to be this, big, huge project. You can do it incrementally and build on the accumulation effect.
Well, so one of the things that's causing a lot of people to feel burned out right now, no matter how old you are, is because what you've been doing in the past isn't working anymore. In other words, you were doing a lot of maybe let's just be honest, a lot of you guys were doing some flaky things as far as lead generation. You were buying leads. You were doing a lot of online stuff. And you've noticed that it's still working sort of, kind of, but not really. And yet the expense to do those things has increased dramatically. So you think there's something wrong with you. There isn't anything wrong with you. What's happened is those marketing ideas have become oversaturated. You know, Julie and I were in real estate when, guess what? The consumer internet, 1996 or 7, actually went online. You know, all of those changes that have happened since the internet revolution, we've been participating in. And here's the thing I'll tell you, is when a great idea is, every agent was talking about Facebook ads. How long did Facebook ads really work at a high level before it became oversaturated because everyone and their brother was doing it? Probably 6 months. Well, the life cycle on one of these whiz-bang ideas now is probably no more than 90 days, and then it becomes oversaturated. It stops working. But what happens is all these internet marketer guys that are trying to sell you things will be selling you into ideas that worked like 2 years ago that aren't working now. And you will spend money on these things because, after all, Facebook ads work. Well, guess what? Again, Facebook ads don't work like they used to. Pay-per-click doesn't work like it used to. All these things have their life cycle, and then they essentially become a virtual waste of time. So I'll suggest to you that a lot of times the reason you're feeling burned out isn't because your best days aren't still in front of you. It's because you just need to hard reset what you're doing. And that's the hard part, because it takes setting aside a lot of, well, first of all, accepting the fact that your best days are still in front of you, no matter how old you are. And then being willing to look introspectively at what you're doing, at your business, what's working and what's not working. I had an interesting, a lot of exchanges with folks that are, again, feeling a little bit burned out because this is another market cycle that we're in, clearly. And, they're wondering whether or not they made the right decisions or the wrong decisions. And I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and she has a team. And we went through all of her numbers on her team. And she had 4 buyer's agents, and she was buying Zillow leads. This is obviously not one of our coaching clients. She was going to become one, probably a Julie coaching client. And I went through the buyer agent math for her, showing her what essentially she was making, because intuitively she knew that the buyer agents weren't making her any money, but she'd not actually done the math. So I did the math for her, and she was losing like $400 on every buyer side she was doing, because between all the fees that are associated with buying a buyer lead from Zillow, she never thought of it like that. So what she has been doing for years is essentially subsidizing her buyer agent staff. Subsidizing it from where? She was still going on listing appointments and being her own listing specialist in the whole thing. She was taking what would have been profit from the listing side of her business and moving it all over. This wasn't strategic. This is just how her balance sheet worked. Moving it over to the buyer side of the business to continue buying Zillow leads because she wanted to keep her numbers up. And that was the bottom line. She was, I think, fearful of what it would mean to her in the marketplace, but also to her ego if she all of a sudden was no longer the number in her market 2 agent. If all of a sudden she wasn't selling 300 houses per year anymore, now she was only selling 200, but her profit was actually like 3x than what it was when she was selling more houses. Those are the conversations a lot of agents and brokers need to be having right now. And, the fact is that if you don't have them, chances are the marketplace will force you to experience the downside of not having made wise business decisions. So the bottom line is every single one of you can look forward to your best days being in front of you, but you're going to have to make some strategic decisions that are probably going to be, I think in a lot of cases, a little bit emotionally painful.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I know that there's a lot of listeners that are feeling that way, and it's okay to be introspective. It's not okay to not make any changes and continue to go that way. And that's why we have a lot of calls like that, to help people sort it out.
Question 4 is for you.
Number 4, I hear you every day telling me to pick up the phone. I haven't been able to push myself to do it. I am beginning to doubt myself. Maybe this isn't for me. Any suggestions? Well, I would refer to some of the points we did earlier, which is, why are you giving yourself the option? You got to break the ice. Sometimes on a coaching call, I will get them to just call your best favorite past client just to do that first step. The first call is always the hardest. Some of you, it's the category that you're calling that's freaking you out. Maybe you just have convinced yourself that you're going to be a terrible agent if you don't figure out how to call for sale by owners. Well, maybe that's too much of a heavy lift. Go to your past clients. Have you done a really killer job on your lead follow-up? Warm up on calling people who want to hear from you, and then get into some of the more challenging things. You can do it. These are just conversations. You're used to having conversations, but they're a bit more targeted, maybe a little bit more scripted. You're having a conversation about real estate. You do real estate for a living. Don't make it so hard.
I'm going to tell a story that you'll remember.
Sure.
So we were in Hawaii. We were standing on top of a platform that was probably 2 stories up, maybe 30, 40 feet, something like that, maybe even 50 feet. And we were there with Andrew.
Oh, yes. Okay. I do remember this.
And
You're already striking panic in my heart.
You were.
This.
And you and Andrew are a little bit on the analytical side, let's say.
Let's tell them why we were standing on a platform
in
the
that's
area.
True.
Because we were ziplining.
It was a ziplining ropes course, sort of like trust building. One of those things like when you're up there, you're just wanting to get the hell over as fast as possible. All right. So Julie and Andrew were standing looking over at the edge. And now let's just be honest. You do have a harness on you, but you're going to fall straight the F down. And there's going to be some undulation of your, family vegetables, let's say.
Right.
So it's not going to be a pleasant experience no matter how you do it.
Yeah.
But you just got to freaking do it. There's no going backwards. And so I was the third to go. And these two were like, over analyzing and thinking about, oh my gosh, how are we going to do it? They're looking for like, I walked in, strapped in, jumped right the hell off.
Yeah.
Now, why do I do that? It's not because I wasn't feeling the fear or not looking, I was looking forward to the
plunge.
The plunge. It's not that I didn't feel fear when I jumped off the thing, because right when you jump off the thing, there's no tension in the cable, so it is freaking scary. I didn't want to think about it. Why didn't I want to think about it? Because I know in life everything comes from doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And there's no overthinking yourself into doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. There's just doing it. So for those of you who are looking for a mindset hack to picking up the phone, there isn't one. Okay.
You just have to do it.
You just have to do it. You just have to jump the F off the cable or off the, the ledge, basically. Hopefully all your harnesses work and you're not going to die, but you just have to do the work. That's it. So again, so many of you have wasted so much of your life energy trying to figure out a hack to emotionally get yourself past the resistance to do this type of work. There isn't one. It's just doing it.
No, and it's also really normal. It's not that, people that have no problem with this have these mysterious superpowers. They just take action faster, which all of you can do. And I have to add a little coaching morsel to this as well. By procrastinating and fighting the things that you know are going to be effective, like picking up the phone and, talking into it, you are not moving yourself forward with your skills. You're getting further away from your skills. You're getting into analysis paralysis, and the things that you learn, even if the calls don't go perfectly, because they won't. The things that you learn on the calls that you do make you so much better, so much faster, because you're role playing with real people that could transact with you.
The longer you procrastinate, the more doubt you manifest, right? The more
it doesn't get better.
It doesn't get better. It gets worse. So for those of you who have been avoiding doing the real work of real estate, how's that working out for you? What's been happening is you've been succumbing to buying leads. You've been succumbing to branding. You've been looking for shortcuts. You've been wasting all your potential doing all these things that are intentionally designed by marketers to convince you that that you never have to make yourself uncomfortable. Look how much of the stuff you're spending your money on you're doing simply because you perceive it to be less daunting than doing the real work of real estate. And yet in your heart, in your soul, you do know that if you ever truly want to be successful with this, you're going to have to force yourself to do the real work of real estate. And that is going to start with stop thinking. Just do it. Just jump off the ledge. Just pick up the phone. Just have that conversation. And when you do, you'll discover that not only do you not have some sort of, horrible outcome, but you are also going to start changing your neural pathways. You're going to change the way your brain is wired to the point where it will always suck to jump off the ledge. It'll always suck to pick up the phone, but it becomes less and less sucky because you've already done it and you know that you can do it. But you won't have that emotional response unless you actually do it.
Yes, and also sign up for Premier Coaching so we can help you stop overthinking about it and get into action.
Well, but Julie, really a lot of the things that ruin people's potential is the overthinking.
Well, for sure. I mean, it's funny when you were talking about the ziplining in Hawaii. When we were up on that platform, it's funny the degrees of this, right? So you know what's going on. You're like, I'm not going to stand around here and think about it. I'm just going to do the leap and get on to the next part of the zip line, right? That's something you've trained yourself to do. You've had success with it. You don't have to think about it. I'm somewhere in between where I'm going to still ruminate on some of that, like, okay, well, this stinks. And I'm going to look around first and see if I have some other options so I can maybe not have to do it. And then I immediately come to, I'm going to end up doing this anyway. So why would I allow myself to overthink it? So then I take the leap. Andrew's still up on the platform ruminating. He eventually jumps off. I was kind of somewhere in between you and him. But my assessment is, what's going to happen if I don't do this?
But you're making a good point. You probably would have figured out a shortcut had I not actually shown you that it can be done. So by doing it first, you then gave yourself permission to do it because you didn't want to have me do something that you wouldn't do because we're competitive. But that's the whole point of having a coach. That's the whole point of basically being around people that have really, truly done it at a high level for a long period of time, because you can follow them confidently versus basically, a lot of these false prophets that people are following right now, not just in real estate, not just in training, but in life in general, they're completely fraudulent. They have never actually done what they're supposedly teaching you how to do. There's a whole industry. One of the largest industries in coaching right now is the industry of teaching people how to be coaches. And that's okay. So let me break this down. A friend of ours named Christian Mickelson, he has a whole very successful business where he's essentially convincing, this is not for real estate agents. This is just for normal folks. What is it that you really want to do? Well, I want to be a life coach. Okay. Well, then guess what? Boom, you're a life coach. Now, here's what are you going to talk about in your life coaching thing? Here's some suggestions. And then all of a sudden these people are, telling the world that they're life coaches, even though, they've been divorced 14 times. They've, but had all these life problems. They've been bankrupt 77 times. And yet they're deciding they're life coaches, and then they get a customer that shows up in their life. That customer doesn't think to actually pre-qualify them as to whether or not they should be listening to them for their advice, and so on and so on and so on. You guys are doing that same thing when you're listening to folks that are giving you real estate, business building advice. You're listening to people that are unqualified. And I mean that in the most direct sense I possibly can. If you actually sat down with these people in real life, belly to belly, and had a real conversation with them about how to take a listing, you quickly discover they don't know jack about how to take a listing. And yet there they are talking about the fact that they know how to, help you guys take listings. One of the biggest names in real estate coaching never has even had a real estate license before. Does that surprise you?
Kind of like having an ejection seat in a helicopter.
Yeah, taking advice. There you go. Taking advice from people like that is as smart as putting an ejection seat in a helicopter. I mean, think about that. All right. So, Julie, we have one more point.
Do one more? Okay.
Yeah.
Last one is number 5. I'm a new agent. What are the top 5 things I should be focused on? I haven't even chosen my broker yet, and I have no real direction.
So I'm going to say this. When you're a new agent, because it is new, it's kind of like if you guys have been on a vacation before and it's not in the United States. So everything around you is different. The words are different. The language is different. The way people dress, the mannerisms, the smells in the air. When you're in an environment like that, do you notice how acutely you remember everything? Do you notice how everything stays as part of your memory forever? You can pull up with unbelievable clarity an experience you had when you went to Tibet 20 years ago. But if I asked you what you had for lunch yesterday, you will not be able to remember. It's because you're present in the moment. Now, why does that matter? When you're a new agent, the worst thing you can do is choose the wrong broker. That's 100% the truth, because you're going to put yourself in an environment where the smells and the mannerisms and the, all the language that they speak and all that will have a dramatic, long-standing influence on you because you're in that present moment. This is a new experience. You're a sponge. You have to learn everything, and you have to learn it quickly if you want to survive. And then you choose the wrong broker, and they fill your head with the wrong, messaging, the wrong items to do, all the stuff. You're pretty much doomed at that point. And that goes with teams, that goes with office managers. Pre-qualify whoever you listen to at the highest level. We talk about this all the time. When you're choosing a real estate coach, choose them based on these 4 filters. First of all, have they had a real estate license before? If they haven't, that's not a real estate. That's it. End of conversation. That's not a real estate coach. That's somebody that's a marketer. Number 2, if they've had a real estate license, did they sell at least 100 homes per year? In 1 year. If they did, okay, go on to question 3. Did they sell at least 100 homes per year for 5 years in a row? Now, if you find someone who's a real estate coach who is taking on real estate clients who sold 100 homes for at least 5 years in a row, chances are they've got their shit together at a high level. Just fact.
One would hope, yes.
Okay. Next question, though, is has that person actually done at least 100,000 paid coaching calls? One-on-one with real estate agents, not YouTube presentations or videos, not, all that. Have they actually done that level of work? In which you will, again, quickly discover in the country, there's maybe 3 to 5 of us. It used to be more, but a lot of them have retired, but there's 3 to 5 of us that remain. Julie and I's coaching organization, we've coached all the coaches that work for us. Our Harris certified coaches are all, we're just essentially coaching clients, and then we coach them to coach all of you. So you're getting the benefit. And Julie and I are, I think, definitely one of the 3 to 5 most, certainly qualified real estate coaches, legit real estate coaches that are out there. So what I'm suggesting to all of you is the number one thing you should do is definitely be protective of the environment in which you find yourself, because that's going to have all the effect. Your physical environment of the broker, the office, the team you join, but also then who you allow to influence you. Julie and I have learned, and we certainly coached all of our top agents, to listen to very few people, but always qualify who you're listening to. You don't need a bunch of, don't be seeking out information that's designed to give you an emotional response. That's essentially you're feeding your desire for salacious headlines. So avoid clickbaity headlines. And the more successful that you become, the more you're going to realize how important it is to keep your focus small, not grand. I don't know. I mean, what other things a new agent should be focusing on?
Well, I was going to refer them to one of our podcasts, which is for new or newer agents, because on that podcast, we talk about some of your fear. A lot of your fear is fear of the unknown, because you have a lot of unknown. You have what we call an experience deficit. So on that podcast, and certainly in Premier Coaching, this is included, where it's a list of how to defeat that experience deficit. So maybe you don't really know that much about houses because you know your house, your parents' house, maybe your best friend's house. So go take a week to preview your market from beginning to end so you know something about the neighborhoods and what you get in the zip codes and all that. It has a list of things that you've never experienced before, like a buyer side closing, a seller side closing, visiting new construction. You can deep dive into all of these things, take a 30-day period to stuff yourself full of experience. Get scripts. Don't spend a lot of time screwing around, speculating, trying stuff out. This is a real deep dive specific list of how to cure your experience deficit.
And if you've been in a brokerage for a long period of time, and if you're the top agent in that office and you're feeling a little bit like you're stalling out, it's time for you to do a broker upgrade. A market like this, really, it's going to separate. There's a huge bifurcation that's already happening in the industry where you're going to see the agents that truly have skill. They're going to start really dominating the industry. And there's agents that are learning to have skill. And then the ones that have sort of just been riding the wave of the market that existed 3 years ago that doesn't really exist now. We have been preparing all of you for the last 20 years for a market like this. If you are ill prepared, then heck yeah, let's have a conversation about you becoming a coaching client. We've made it very easy for you. Just join Premier Coaching, and you can click the link below or just go to premiercoaching.com. And I'll definitely say this. There's going to be, actually it was Mark Willis from Keller Williams that said this. There is massive consolidation that's already happening in the real estate industry, and that's just going to accelerate. Brokers, teams, small offices, big offices, they're going to be consolidating. In other words, some of them are going to go out of business. Some of them are going to merge with others. But what we see, and this is going to be a long-standing trend in real estate, is a huge number of brokers and offices and obviously individual agents are moving over to eXp Realty. There's no doubt that's happening. In just this past week, I have had conversations with the smallest office was, I think, 40 agents, and the largest one was 2,000 agents. These are all brokers that are saying, listen, I realize this business model I have, it was great 20 or 30 years ago, but it's terrible now. And, explain to me how eXp is going to improve my lot in life. And it's frankly not a hard conversation. It usually just comes down to the math. And so we show them, and then they have a clear path forward. And guess what they find again? Their motivation. We had a conversation, Julie and I did, with someone who was 64. And they thought, well, I'm just going to retire. And we talked about, what does that mean to them? And they didn't quite have enough assets to retire. And I have to sell my house and I have to all the things. So they're essentially slipping into the idea that they're going to have to start compromising because they believed that their best days were behind them. So we painted the EXP picture for them, showed them the math, and the motivation that instantly happened as soon as they saw how simple, with just a few changes, they could make their lives was just incredible. There is a clear path forward for everyone. And in our opinion, eXp Realty is definitely going to be one of the first things that all of you should be seriously considering. So if you're in eXp Realty, congratulations, you made the smartest business decision probably of your life. If you've yet to make that decision, let's have the conversation. Text me directly at 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. If you want to learn why hundreds of agents are joining with Julie and I every month at eXp Realty, and you're not yet ready to have that conversation with me, scroll down below and click the link, and you'll go to our team's, our group's website. You can learn more about why so many agents are joining specifically with Julie and I in our group, which is called Libertas. So scroll down below and click the link below. Or if you're ready to land the plane and you have not yet chosen a sponsor at eXp Realty, please text me directly at 512-758-0206. Hopefully this podcast, even though it was a little all over the place.
It was Ask Me Anything.
It was Ask Us Anything. That's right. And we are going to try to do one of these at least once a week. Do consider sending in questions. You can text me at 512-758-0206. If you're a Premier Coaching client, do submit it during your daily coaching session. Or you can also send it to us in Instagram, however you choose to message with us. It's up to you. Over on Instagram, we're at Tim and Julie Harris. So have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.